basket.
The teams you love to hate, covered only on SNY.
Get your New York sports here.
This market's broken until something's done to fix it. Till the SEC starts favoring the little guy over big institutional players. Real investors are just going to keep leaving in droves. We got fewer and fewer actual individual investors, even as there are more and more machines pinging each other. We've reached a point where the legitimacy of our markets, especially when it comes to price discovery, which is supposed to be one of the main functions of any market, has been sacrificed on the altar of financial engineering. And the SEC just doesn't see it. We may not know what actually caused that 1,000-point decline 2.5 weeks ago on Thursday, March 6th. And May 6th. And by the way, that in of itself is a problem that we don't know why it happened. But we do know what made it possible. The proliferation of misguided financial products like double and triple levered ETFs of mass destruction that I think can allow money managers to get around the margin rules, manipulate stocks down with overpowering selling firepower. We also don't like the repeal of the old-fashioned uptick rule that leaves investors with no protection against endless short selling. Oh, and of course there's high-frequency trading, which benefits no one except a couple of big rich hedge fund managers, lately to your detriment. The proponents of all this financial innovation, all these reckless products, claim they generate liquidity. But we have less liquidity than I can recall at any time in my 30-plus years I've been in the business. Where the heck was the liquidity when the bogus 1,000-point decline happened? The SEC's proposed a circuit breaker solution where individual stocks in the S&P 500 would stop trading if they fell more than 10% in 5 minutes. But the proposal exempts the ETFs, that I think are responsible for much of the damage, leaving you defenseless. We need a better fix. That's why I'm thrilled to have Senator Ted Kaufman. He's the junior Democratic senator from Delaware on the show tonight. He's one of the smartest, most sophisticated people in Congress on financial issues. He's consistently pushed to level the playing field back in favor of regular investors. We want to hear what he thinks about the bogus 1,000-point decline, how to prevent another one from happening, and about regulation of finance. So, Senator Kaufman, welcome back to Mad Money.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me.
Senator, I have to owe you an apology. You were the first to bring up the potential problems of high-frequency trading. I had believed the argument that, no, they provide liquidity. I don't want to say I drunk the Kool-Aid, but you know what? You forecast that perhaps one day the machines would go wild. How did you see it? I didn't see it. How did you know?
Well, Jim, you know, really, my basic thing, what I've kind of looked at here is when you have a lot of change and a lot of money, and you have no transparency, therefore no regulation, you have a problem. That's what happened to derivatives. And you know, back in September, I noticed the same thing about high-frequency trading. We've basically gone from a floor-based system to a system with digitalization, decimalization. We'd gone from basically where 4 years ago, 30% of our trades were high-frequency trading. They went to 70%. No one knows what's going on inside here. They're trading thousands of shares a second, and no one knows what's happening. Therefore, there is no regulation. So I said that's going to lead to a problem, just like it did with derivatives. So really, you know, I just looked at it and I see the same thing going on, and that's what's caused my concern, and that's why I contacted the SEC about looking at a market structure, the whole market structure. Plus, you also know, Jim, we've got the dark pools. We've got 50 markets now. We used to have 2. We have all these changes, and they all happened when basically we had in Washington people that said we don't need to regulate anything. And so it grew like a gigantic weed, and high-frequency trading was one of those things that really grew.
Well, you nailed it. I guess you just saw it, and you were so right. But now I'm worried about a new thing. I speak to more individual investors than most people.
Yeah.
They hate it now, Senator.
Oh, yeah.
They think it's corrupt. They think we're rigged. How do we get the SEC, how do we get people to realize that it's safe when it really isn't safe yet? And how does the SEC start representing the little guy again?
Well, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the SEC starts tagging these trades so we know what's going on in the beginning. And what we need is we need people to contact the SEC. When they asked for comments, they got close to 100 comments, and the vast majority of the comments said, hey, there's no problem with high-frequency trading. You know, Jim, it's the same thing we've talked about before on this show, you and I. There's kind of a no-snitch rule in Wall Street, which is essentially says, you know, like they do in the inner city, no snitch.
Right.
Nobody wants to tell the truth about what's going on because nobody wants to make the high-frequency traders and the big banks and the folks that are involved in this upset with them. So we need everybody to go forward and say to the SEC, look, we've got to look into this thing. We don't know what's going on. There are allegations of all kinds of bad things going on. In the UK, they're doing a study of it. They call it spoofing and layering. They're doing the same thing in Australia. We need to look into it.
But now we know the truth, right, Senator? that all these arguments that it provides and creates liquidity were nonsense, because when we needed liquidity, we saw stocks drop to zero. There was no liquidity. It was the opposite, right? It sucked liquidity out.
That's exactly right. And I've always said liquidity is great, and I'm for liquidity, but transparency and fairness always trump liquidity. And I have said that, Jim, 100, 150 times in speeches and meetings and everything else. No one's ever challenged me. Liquidity's fine, but if we don't have transparency, we don't know what's going on in these markets, then we don't know if we have fairness, then that trumps liquidity every time. And I've never heard any of the high-frequency traders come back and say, oh, no, you're wrong. You know, liquidity is really the king. We should do everything with liquidity. They just say this will give us liquidity, and then come the ad hominem arguments like, well, are you opposed to technology? I'm an engineer, Jim. You know that.
No,
I believe in technology. Technology is great. But you just don't buy on the come that, hey, this is good for you, this is really going to help you. The days of trust me, this is all going to work out, they're over.
Yeah, you're right. Look, I bought in. I talked to your staff guy. I had all these friends who were in the business. They all told me not to worry about it. They were wrong. And I don't want to say they conned me, because I think some of them are well-meaning, but you saw through the arguments, and I didn't. I'm proud of you. I'm proud that I know you.
Jim,
now, how do we get someone on the SEC who's very specifically not buying into the mumbo-jumbo and says, whoa, maybe these ETFs that we did, maybe we shouldn't have gone around the margin rules. Maybe we're selling product that's not right for people. How do we get... President Obama must know this. He believes passionately in the little guy.
No, I think that's right. I think it's good. But Mary Shapiro, I'm giving Mary Shapiro, you know, I'm still... with Mary Shapiro, she did, as soon as we started talking about market structure, she started looking at market structure. She's looking at this tagging thing. She says she has large trader. I think the best thing, you know, Jim, in my life, some of the really best things that happened to me have come out of something really bad. And I would never have wished on the country what happened on May 6th in terms of sending a message. But now I think Mary Shapiro and Gary Gensler at the CFTC and Bear at the FDIC, they now have a... They can move now. See, that I think before that, every time they turned, people on Wall Street were saying, don't hear, no problem with high-frequency trading, no problem with short selling, no problem with the uptick rule, no problem with any of these things. Now, at least they have something to say, look, there's a problem here. This could have been a lot worse. And by the way, getting us back to something you and I have talked about, Mary Shapiro said the other day in a hearing on the House side, they were short selling. If we'd had the uptick rule in there, we could have brought a lot of that to a stop. And we definitely need some kind of a hard locate for short selling. But that went on, and she's convinced that went on in this thing. So we're going to get this together. I think everybody, we just need a lot of help with people calling attention. We've got to get together and work on this.
I think we're going to do it because of you, Senator. Because you saw it, and you saw through a lot of the arguments that even fooled me. Senator Kaufman, thank you so much for being on Mad Money.
Jim, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. This guy gets it. He knows. He's the only guy down there who's really protecting us, I got to tell you. He's the real deal. He can move Gensler, whom I like, and he can move Shapiro, whom I like. But we got to give him support. After the break, I'll try to make even more money. Coming up.
A lot of people questioning now its very survival.
With the euro dropping to its low.